The Federal Trade Commission estimated that a total reported fraud losses by older adults was more than $1.9 billion in 2024, but the actual losses could be as high as $61.5 billion because only a fraction of scams and losses are even reported. So in this video, you're going to learn some of the most common scams that target older adults, along with some practical tips and strategies to avoid falling victim. And so in my own life, my mom's recently been contacted, but luckily realized it was a scam before it was too late. And I'll also share some of my own stories about a scammer who contacted me. And they're both just examples of just how far criminals these days are willing to go to steal money and deceive people. So welcome back to all of my subscribers, and particularly my AgeWiseU members and my podcast insiders. We've built an amazing community over the past 5 years of the podcast. And if you're new to this channel and to the podcast, welcome to This is Getting Old, Moving Towards an Age-Friendly World. I'm Dr. Melissa Batchelor, and I am a nurse and a nurse practitioner with nearly 30 years of experience caring for older adults and their families. So if you'd like to join me for some upcoming live exclusive events, please stay tuned to the end to find out how you can join me for those and more. And the reason I wanted to focus on this topic today is because, every year scammers are stealing billions of dollars from unsuspecting victims using fake phone calls, emails, AI generated voices, and even romance scams to deceive people. In my opinion, it's one of the greatest fleecings of Americans at a time in life when they have very little time to recover from the loss, and it really just breaks my heart. And the emotional and financial toll of being scammed can be devastating, but there are ways to spot these red flags and to fight back. So joining us today is Cameron Huddleston, who's a financial expert dedicated to protecting older adults from fraud. And she's going to help us understand how scams work, how to recognize if a loved one has been targeted, and what we can do to stay safe. So welcome, Cameron. You've been a guest on the podcast before, but for those who missed those 4 episodes, please just introduce yourself a little before we get started.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Melissa. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. As you pointed out, it's a really important one. I am a longtime personal finance journalist, and I am an editor at large for a company called Careful, which is a digital platform that provides monitoring for older adults' daily finances and supports coordination with their family caregivers.
And you're an author of a book.
That's right, I am an author of a book. It's called Mom and Dad, We Need to Talk: How to Have Essential Conversations with Your Parents About Their Finances. And I was also a caregiver for my mom who had Alzheimer's for more than 12 years.
All right. So it's a great book. I hope people will check it out. And you actually have some great resources that we'll share up towards the end as well. So first, we want to just talk about understanding the scam crisis. So why are older adults such a big target for scammers?
One of the key reasons is because scammers see them as a big source of cash. They think older adult, they've got a retirement nest egg, they've got reliable Social Security or pension income. And so that's one of the key reasons that scammers go after older adults, because they think they're cash cows. Now, there are other reasons that older adults can also be targeted if they are isolated at home alone, if they are experiencing any sort of cognitive decline. Older adults can be more trusting, and they also might be less likely to report scams and fraud, making it easier for these scammers to get away with the crimes that they're committing.
And I think one of the big things that has changed recently is kind of the role of AI. So how has AI changed the way that scams are working today?
So, first of all, AI makes it easier for scammers to do their job. And I hate to say their job, but that's what it is for these people. Scamming is a job. These people do it, I mean, all day, every day. And that's why they're so good at it. And there are a couple of ways that they're using AI to get better at what they do. So let's start with emails. Scammers will send out phishing emails, emails that might appear to come from a company, an organization, a charity that you know. And with AI, it's much easier for them to sound legitimate. In the past, it was easier to spot those fake emails because the grammar is incorrect. There are typos, misspellings, but now they can use AI and sound a lot more legitimate, making it harder to spot those phishing emails. Same goes for text messages. You'll get a text message from a scammer. In the past, it was easy to spot them because they didn't always make sense. The grammar was so bad. And again, the misspellings, the typos, but AI makes it easier for those scam text messages to look like they are legitimately coming from Netflix or your bank. And then scammers are also using they can copy people's voices. And so your grandkid is on TikTok, you know, talking about their day or whatever they might be doing on TikTok. And if you shared on social media things about your grandkids, that scammer who's on social media and they are on Facebook trying to gather information about people, then they go and hunt down your grandkid on TikTok. They get a snippet of your grandkid's voice or another family member's voice, and they can use that to sound like your grandchild or someone you know when they call. And so it's a lot more convincing when you get that phone call saying, Grandma, Grandpa, I'm in trouble. I got busted for doing something, and now you need to pay this attorney a lot of money to help me out. In the past, you might like hear that voice and say, well, what's wrong with you? You don't sound like my grandchild. Oh, I've got a cold. Now it can sound just like your grandkid because they're using AI to spoof their voice.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I was telling you when we were planning this episode, I got a text message where it was the person, obviously they had found my name, my phone number. They actually knew where I worked for my day job and then impersonated my dean. And I was just like, that's a lot of steps for somebody to go through to target me. And luckily, I mean, I did figure it out within just a couple of interactions with that person and then block them. um, so let's talk about some of the different types of scams and how they work. um, you know, I guess we could start with like imposter scams, which is exactly the example that I just gave you.
Right, right. And so these are some of the most common scams, and they target older adults in particular. An imposter scam could be someone claiming to be a family member in need. They could be claiming to be with a government organization, a government agency. They could be claiming to be with a business, two of the key imposter scams that are circulating now, and often they kind of work in conjunction, are scammers claiming to be with a government agency, the IRS, Medicare, Social Security, or claiming to be with your financial institution. And the reason I say that they're working together is because you might get that text message claiming to be from your bank, alerting you that there's potential fraudulent activity on your account. And they give you a number or a link to click, and then you're connected with someone who's supposedly with your financial institution's fraud division. And they tell you, we've noticed some unusual activity. We have been working with, and they'll name some sort of law enforcement agency, the FBI, the Federal Trade Commission, or even the IRS. We'd like to connect you with this agent we've been working with. And so then you're handed over to someone who's supposedly in law enforcement, and they're going to tell you that your identity has been stolen and that your accounts are at risk because of that stolen identity. There are thieves out there who are using your name to commit all sorts of horrible crimes. We need you to cooperate. What you're going to need to do is transfer your money out of your account, and they might tell you that you need to go to a crypto ATM and put all your money into that crypto ATM and hand it over to the government for safekeeping. In some cases, they're even sending couriers to people's homes, and they're asking them, hey, put the money in a shoebox or put it in an envelope, put it in a magazine and stick it in the back of this vehicle. It's crazy the lengths that these scammers will go to, but they're building that trust by claiming to be with your financial institution and then a government agency. Sometimes they can use AI to do these things. They can get information about you by looking at your social media accounts. If they're data breaches, they can get information about, where you bank and what, perhaps they might even know the last four digits of your social security number. And so they call and they say, "Hi, is this Melissa Bachelor? Do you have an account at, whatever the bank is?" And then they'll say, "Okay, so your last four digits of your social security number are 1234." And they're gaining that trust by providing you with some information and making you believe. These imposter scams are rampant. And so people really need to be alert to them. Your bank is not going to reach out to you out of the blue. Government agencies aren't going to contact you out of the blue. IRS will never call, email, or text you. It communicates by mail. And so if someone's reaching out to you out of the blue by phone, email, or text message, a red flag needs to go up. You need to say, well, is this really my bank? Is this really a government agency reaching out to me? It's okay to hang up. It's okay not to respond. Your best bet is to reach out to that company directly and say, "Hey, I just got a phone call. I just got an email. I just got a text message. Is there a problem with my account?" Do not interact with phone calls, emails, or text messages that you get out of the blue from anyone claiming to be with a company or a government agency.
Yeah, and two others, like I get a text every now and then from the post office saying
Yeah.
they were able to deliver a package and that, yeah, I need to respond by text to them. And I'm like, well, I'm not expecting any packages, so they'll just figure that out. So that's another one. And then the one that my mom got, it was someone impersonating like the local DA saying, she'd missed a court date, there was a warrant out for her arrest and that she needed to speak to this certain detective. It gets passed off to a detective. And luckily she was driving and was just like, "I don't have time to talk to you right now." And then, started talking to my dad about it and he's like, "Yeah, no, I don't think any of that's correct either." So then the next one, which was the other example that I was thinking about, but I'll let you talk about it first. Explain what a tech support scam is and why people should never give remote access to their computers.
Certainly, older adults are more likely to become victims of tech support scams. And the way these typically work, you're on your computer, you're doing something, and a message pops up. And it tells you that either um, your software needs to be updated or that there's some sort of breach on your computer, and you're usually provided with a phone number that you need to call to deal with this urgent issue related to your computer. And so when you call that number, person on the other end of the line, which will likely be in another country, is going to try to get you to give remote access to your computer. They're going to walk you through the steps to do it. And once you do that, and once they're on your computer, they have access to everything. They can, pull up your browsing history. They can, if you've got your password saved for your bank account, for example, they can log into your bank account. They can move money. And so if there's a pop-up on your computer telling you that something is wrong, ignore it. Typically, there's going to be a little X up in the corner that you can click on to click out of it. What you could really do, though, is actually disconnect your computer from the internet right away so that these people don't have access to your computer, okay? So if you get that warning, most likely there is nothing wrong with your computer. Disconnect from the internet, and if you're really concerned, get on the phone with the company you bought your computer from. Like, let's say you've got a Dell, for example, or you've got an Apple computer. Call their customer support and let them know you got this message, and they can walk you through. If there's actually a problem, they can tell you what to do, or they might probably tell you the same thing that I just said. This is a scam. Don't interact.
Right. And so I've had that happen to me before too. And the guy that I called, um, just none of it felt right. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to call Apple directly. He goes, "This is Apple." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so." Because I just Googled the number to Apple, and then then I saw the little X and it all went away, but it tells you that your computer's frozen, it's not going to work. So that's another one to keep in mind. And then I did have one of my AgeWiseU members, I was talking with her, and her husband had gotten this warning from Microsoft that he needed some update. And by the time she uh, got involved, the husband had moved $12,000 into some other account. And he had a little bit of early memory issues. And so, in talking with her about another way to protect herself, because she's like, she's like, well, I told him not to ever be on the computer without me knowing about it. And I was like, yeah, but he obviously forgot that he needed to do that. So we talked through, just change the password to something he doesn't know. That way you're always aware when he's going to get on the computer, because he'll have to come get you to ask for the password. So that's another way that caregivers can kind of protect loved ones.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then
great idea.
yeah, well, I was like, it's a quick fix. But it was a lot of effort and hours spent for her to backtrack and go to the bank and to make sure that everything was okay and nothing else had been tampered with, because he also couldn't remember what all he had done. He didn't remember even moving the money. So, yes, it can snowball into a lot of things. So prevention is really like the best thing.
It is.
And then the last scam we'll talk about are the romance scams.
And these can be the most financially and emotionally damaging because these aren't one-time scams. It's not someone who's calling you and telling you that you failed to show up for jury duty and you've got to make a payment because you owe some sort of fine. It's not a sweepstakes scam where they're asking you to wire money to claim a prize. These scams they're drawn out. Someone will connect with you online, whether it's through an online dating website or on social media, and they're going to develop a romance online. They're going to find excuses not to meet in person, and they will inevitably start asking for money. And they will ask and ask and ask and take and take and take until you can give no more. People lose their entire life savings to romance scammers. Some people end up going into debt. They will take out a second mortgage on their home. They'll max out credit cards to give money to these people they believe are their true love. And so these scams are also particularly hard to break the spell when you've got a loved one who's become a victim of a romance scammer, because they truly believe it is a real person and that they are in a romance. And you have to be really careful when you're approaching a loved one you think might be a victim of a romance scam. You certainly don't want to blame them. What you want to do is try to gently poke holes into the story that this scammer is telling, by asking questions like, have you met this person in person? Most likely they're going to tell you, no, oh, it's a doctor working overseas, or it's someone in the military. There's that good excuse not to have met in person. Do you have a picture of the person? And typically what these scammers will do is steal real people's photos, steal them from social media websites, and use them to create their online dating site profiles. They'll create fake profiles on Facebook and Instagram. And so what you can do is a reverse image lookup. Go to Google, and upload that image of your, loved one's online romance, and you can see what other accounts or other people that image is associated with, and say, look, this person looks like they have a lot of different names. I wonder what's going on here. You don't want to be like, wow, you got duped, mom. Because that's going to put mom or dad on the defensive. This is interesting. There are a lot of different profiles associated with this person, and they might say something like, well, yeah, they told me this, and they told me that scammers have been stealing their identity. Okay, and so then, well, yes, but could it, ask them questions? Could it be that perhaps the person you're talking to isn't who they claim to be? So you want to poke holes in that story they're being told. Maybe ask them, hey, can we get on the phone together with them? Find a way to help them realize that the person they're talking to is not really a scammer. But again, it goes back to education. You want to stop your loved ones from becoming victims of these scams before they happen. And so educating aging parents, aging loved ones on how these scams work. Look, if someone reaches out to you on Facebook and strikes up a conversation, and then they ask to take the conversation off Facebook and to use something like WhatsApp or text messaging, you need to be wary. If they're saying everything right and they seem like the perfect person, again, be wary. There's not a perfect person out there. And if they're making excuses not to meet with you in person, this could be a scammer. Let them know what a romance scam looks like. Let them know that they can come to you to ask questions. Hey, do you think that this person is real? Can you help me look up their picture that they sent me to see if perhaps there are other names associated with it? But talking to your aging loved ones about how romance scams work is really going to be the best way to prevent them from becoming victims, because they do become a victim. Like I said, it's really hard to break that spell.
Yeah, it makes me think of a couple of things. You'll get these random text messages from somebody who's like, hey, and then, you know, they'll use a different name and ask like a question, and then you reply back and go, you have the wrong number. And it's always, oh, I guess my assistant, messed up. By the way, how are you? You seem nice. And I'm like, block.
Right, but that's another tactic that they use. They will send a random text message and they'll send hundreds and thousands of these. And without fail, they're going to get a few responses. And then they'll strike up that conversation. And the next thing you know, you're texting every day and they're your friend. And maybe they're telling you, hey, do you want to learn how to make a lot of money? Let me teach you how to invest in cryptocurrency. So that's one of the tactics they might use. They might not try to spark a romance, but they want to tell you how to invest in cryptocurrency. And then suddenly they're like telling you how wonderful you are. And they kind of move into that romance stage of things so that they really reel you in. But that's another way that they're doing it too, is with those text messages out of the blue.
Yeah. So now we'll talk about how to recognize a scam, which we've given some hints about that as well. I think the number one rule is if anybody ever asks you for money or wants to help you invest money, or if money is involved at all, that should be like the number one biggest red flag.
It
Um,
is. And if they're asking for you to make a payment in an unusual form of payment, whether it's a wire transfer, cryptocurrency, gift cards, because these forms of payment are hard to trace and they're hard to reverse.
Right. And I actually had one of my good friends was talking about her grandfather being a victim of an impersonation scam. Um, said, knew that she was his granddaughter, called and said, that she was in trouble. And he was told to go to Best Buy and buy $10,000 worth of gift cards. And he did. And sent it. So we've talked about them using gift cards, crypto, or even sending a messenger to pick up cash. But what should someone do if they suspect that they're being scammed?
If you suspect that someone is trying to scam you, the best thing to do is to cut off contact with that person right away. Reach out to someone you trust. Maybe that's a family member. Maybe if you work with a financial advisor, contact your bank and say, hey, I just had this unusual transaction. Could it be a scam? So getting another opinion is a good idea. Another thing that people need to be aware of is that scammers always want to create a sense of urgency. And they do that in one of two ways. They either tell you that something is wrong, and then if you don't act right away, there will be terrible consequences. There's fraud in your account. I'm your grandkid and something terrible has happened to me and you've got to make a payment right away. There's an issue with your computer. Okay, they want to scare you into acting. They want that emotional response. Or they're going to tell you that you could win something by acting right away. The sweepstakes call. You just won $10,000. In order to claim your prize, you need to wire some money. These are advanced taxes, or there's a fee that you have to pay. Okay, you don't have to pay any fees to collect sweepstakes winnings, by the way. And so they're going to make you be worried that something bad is going to happen, or there's a promise that something really good will happen. And so that is a real big telltale sign of a scam. And so if someone is pressuring you to act right now, hang up, don't respond to the text message, don't respond to the email. take a breath, pause, and think, if my bank is really trying to contact me because of fraud, then I'm going to hang up this phone and call my bank directly. If the IRS is really trying to audit me, do I have to pay with a gift card right now? No, it
Right.
doesn't work that way. So take a second to ask yourself, am what I'm being told, does that make sense? And again, reaching out to someone else to get a second opinion is always a good idea. And what people
Well,
also,
and I was going to
go
say that
ahead,
is one thing that they will tell you not to do. You
of
can't tell
course.
anybody, don't talk to anybody about this. And it's like the first thing you should do is get off the phone and call the actual person. Like if that grandfather had just hung up and called his granddaughter, like he would have realized that she was okay. So that's another thing is that, don't let them isolate you or tell you not to talk to anybody. That's one of the very first things that you should do is to talk to somebody else about it if anything about it feels weird. Um,
Exactly, exactly. Because, if it's supposedly someone with a federal government agency, they're not going to threaten you. Federal government agencies will not threaten you, and they're not going to tell you you can't talk to someone else, or that if you don't do this, then, you know, you're going to have to pay a huge fine, or, we're going to take all your money away from you. And so you're right, scammers are going to try to isolate you. So if someone's telling you that you can't talk with anyone else, again, that's a sign of a scam. Um, and so if what people do need to know is that if you become a victim of a scam, if you transfer money to a scammer, let's say that you log onto your bank account and you transfer electronically $1,000, or you withdraw the cash from your bank account, and then you go to a crypto ATM and you feed that money into the crypto ATM and hand it over to scammers. Even though you are a victim of a scam, because you authorize those transactions, you're liable for them. Like, the bank does not legally have to reimburse you. Now, if a scammer got access to your bank account without your knowledge, if they were able to hack into your account and they made transactions that you did not authorize, then that's fraud, and the bank, as long as you report it quickly, will have to reimburse you. But if you authorize a transaction, usually you're out of luck. It's some banks, some financial institutions will help you get your money back, but a lot of times that money is gone. And so people need to realize that, it's like, if you've authorized a transaction, you can
that's it.
kiss your money goodbye. I mean, it's a good idea to let the bank know that there's been a scam. Talk to the bank, talk to the financial institution to see if there's anything you can do. If you recognize that you're a victim of a scam fast enough, they might be able to stop the transaction. But so of course it is a good idea to report it. You can report to the Federal Trade Commission. They have a website called it's identitytheft.gov, and you can go in there and report that you're a victim of identity theft, and report to local law enforcement that you are a victim of a scam. They might not necessarily be able to catch the scammer, but get that police report. And then if you gave more of your personal information and more incidents of fraud happen down the road, then you've got that police report that you can use to say, hey, I didn't make these transactions. I didn't open that account. I was a victim of identity theft. Someone used my information to make these transactions or open these accounts in my name.
Yeah. And so then I think the last thing we'll talk about for this topic is just recognizing scam activity in other people. So what are some warning signs that a family member is being scammed?
So, certainly, if you have a family member who's talking about a new love interest, you should ask questions. Who is this person? How did you meet? How have you met in person? You want to determine whether your loved one is a potential victim of a romance scam. If you notice changes in your loved one's financial behavior, perhaps they were always willing to pick up the tab when you went out to eat, and now it seems like they have financial problems, that could be a sign that they are a victim of a long-term type of scam, where they're giving money consistently to someone and they've lost a lot of money and now they're in financial dire straits because they've given away a lot of their money to a scammer. If your loved one appears to become withdrawn and isolated, it could be that they've got a scammer who is, again, telling them not to talk to other people because they don't want it to be exposed that this person is a victim of a scam. Just looking for those changes in behavior is also key to make sure that you never blame your loved one for becoming a victim of a scam. Don't say anything like, oh my gosh, how could you fall for that? Everyone knows that the IRS doesn't call and, tell you that they're auditing you and that you have to pay a gift card to pay off back taxes, okay? You don't want to do that. You want your loved ones to feel comfortable coming to you. You want to help support them and help them report that they are a victim of a scam and help them recover from the scam. Because if it happened once, it could happen again, and you want to be able to talk to them, have those conversations about what are the red flags so they don't become a victim again. And if they get that suspicious call, they're going to call you and say, hey, I just got an unusual call. So if you're blaming them in any way, they're going to withdraw even more.
And so then just to finish out this topic, if you or a loved one need assistance connecting to resources or you want to report suspicious activities that you think could be fraudulent, you can also contact the United States Senate Special Committee on Aging. They have a toll-free fraud hotline, which is 1-855-303-9470. Or you can visit the website, which is aging.senate.gov, and you can submit on a form. So you can just kind of Google fraud hotline US Senate and it comes right up because it is important to report these things so that we can continue to raise awareness. But thank you so much for joining me today. And if you'd like to be a part of my community and learn more about aging, age-friendly initiatives, or Alzheimer's disease, you can drop by my website at MelissaBPhD.com. And there you can grab the free podcast insider guide. And we will soon be updating the website. So I hope you'll definitely stop by and check out all the great resources and offerings that are there that have been developed just for you. And all AgeWiseU members and podcast insiders are invited by email each week to join me for the live podcast recordings through Zoom. And now I'm actually doing new live monthly webinars. So when you stop by to grab your free guide, after that, you can keep an eye on your inbox for these special insider-only invitations. And if you found value in this episode, please hit the like button and share it with someone else that might find it helpful, especially all the great tips that Cameron, you've shared with us. But be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you're alerted when the next episode comes out, which is every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Until next time, be well.